Okay, so I did my project on the 2019 river flooding of Missouri. Weather patterns that caused flooding. So an excessively wet prior year caused soil to be completely saturated with water. And then in the winter, obviously that froze. So when more precipitation hit the ground, it just ran off instead of sinking in. In early 2019, ice and snow melted and collected as runoff downstream, causing the Missouri River to flood in Nebraska and Iowa. This was a seasonal feature because it was a result of frozen precipitation in the winter, such as ice and snow. And it was also storm related because heavy winter storms in the Midwest was the direct result of the excessive runoff that led to flooding. And it was also driven by precipitation, obviously, lots of rain before the winter came. It was a very wet season, and then the snow melt contributed to flooding. Magnitude of flooding in space and time. So the frequency of flooding, previously flooding of this magnitude happened along the Missouri River in 1993, 2009, and 2011. The geographic region impacted were areas of Nebraska and Iowa along the river and tributaries as well. Some anthropogenic factors that affected the frequency and magnitude of flooding, an increased level in CO2 in the atmosphere as a result of human industrial climate change. Obviously, putting those greenhouse gases out in the atmosphere leads to climate change, which causes more severe winters. So we see more harsh storms in the Midwest during the winter, which means more snow, more ice, more melting, more runoff. And will frequency and magnitude change alongside climate change? I just touched on this. Obviously, more greenhouse gases will lead to more severe winters as a result of climate change. And so more storms and snowmelt will also be seen. Societal and economic impacts. Thousands of people have had to rebuild their homes, businesses, and farms as a result of flood damage, and towns have been left underwater. Interruption in normal life. So they've actually seen a decrease in school enrollment numbers because families are having to move, marriages, separations from financial and emotional strain due to the flooding. And in terms of business and commerce, local and big businesses have struggled, gone out of business as a result of flooding damage that they cannot afford to repair. Continued. Some regularly destroyed infrastructure from these floods are roads, dams, and levees being washed out. In terms of crops, we've seen lots of farmland in the Midwest has been destroyed from flooding because the standing water obviously ruins the crop. There's poor drainage, so this is really bad for farmers. Economic cost was estimated in 2019 to be around $1 billion. But since they still have not fully recovered from 2019, it's obviously more than that. Replacing damaged levees is extremely difficult, expensive, and getting approval from the government is a very lengthy process. And then human cost, we've seen lots of flood displacement, which is when people are having to move away, forced to take jobs elsewhere, leaving their families, leaving certain school districts because the flood quadrupled, commutes for people to go to work or to school. And some were forced to split up from their families just to go to work. Mitigation and adaptation of flooding. Mitigation strategies to combat flooding. The state of Missouri has introduced legislation in the House and Senate to increase flood protection along the Missouri River. The goal is to get Congress involved to upgrade the infrastructure of dams and levees in Missouri instead of just paying billions of dollars to keep putting a patch on the levees to get them back to their prior state, because future floods will continue to damage the levees and ruin towns. So community flood control devices are levees and dams. It takes a long time to repair these and it's very costly. And plan for regular flooding are future floods are inevitable and levees and dams are rebuilt, even though they are certain to sustain repeated damage. Here are my works cited. And these are the sources I used for my pictures. Thank you guys for watching.